Should couple have access to each other's phones or social media?
I could say to you, well, I don't see any reason why you wouldn't have access. There's also a question of simple privacy. And for a lot of people, that's really invasive. Like, why would you need to go into my social media account? I'm posting there, you can see what I'm posting, but you don't need to actually go into it. The difference between being able to see what your partner's posting and actually having access to the account is a different issue. For some partners, they have each other's passwords. They easily exchange these things. They easily kind of go in and out of each other's things without. But it's something that they've agreed to and that that works for them.
Hello again. This time I didn't ask anyone to give me food, and because it's around lunchtime, I made my special recipe of burger, no sauce. I don't know if you want sauce.
No, I don't want.
It's not bacon.
No.
It's a gammon.
Excellent.
With eggs and cheese.
Excellent.
This I call it cheese fest. Burger breakfast.
Okay. Brunch. At this time.
Yeah, it's a brunch.
It's a brunch. Tuck in.
Yeah, tuck in.
Okay.
I'm using my special fork.
What's special about it?
It's because I received it from my wife. It say, I fucking love you.
There you go.
At this moment, I think we got Valentine's Day coming, but I will publish the video after. And my gift for Valentine's Day is coming too late. On the website where they are making books.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I made basically a cartoon version of ours.
Oh, right.
But it was only for couples. You can tap in, even change the words, create a story, and you can change the pages, and say why you love that person. And I put in some pages my daughter in the back and say, I'm hungry.
Right.
I think she's going to love that, because my daughter, after she ate,
right,
I'm hungry.
right.
When you feed her, she say, I don't want it anymore. But with the hungry, I mean, on few pages, because I think it got to like 50 pages, I put my daughter there saying, I'm hungry.
I'm hungry, yeah. She can't wait anymore. Excellent.
Like in the romantic moments, she comes and disturbs us.
Yep. That's what children do. For sure.
The thing is, saw a video about family pictures, or when they're supposed to pose for something. The parents, they put children's between them.
Yes.
And that person said, that's not right. It's you first. You need to stay together, and children around you, not the children between you.
Different fashions. I think the
I think it's something which we don't think about it, but in the end, the couple, the husband and wife, is going to be always together, because the children are going to leave the home.
Eventually they will leave, yes.
There's some stuff which we need to think about in the relationship.
I already want to say something about that. Should I? If before you even start asking me questions.
Yeah. The thing is, when you eat, you come with a talk. You know? I don't know if you like the egg. No,
it's
like,
perfect.
it's fried in lard.
All right. Okay. So lots of fat.
Yeah.
Okay.
Apparently, fat is good for brain.
Yes. The right kind of fat, yes.
Yeah, no sugar.
Yeah.
Because sugar, it's like drugs.
Yeah. Very nice, Marianne. Maybe next time we'll bring the food.
Yeah, why not?
Specialist Maurizio specialities.
Okay.
Yes, we're filming.
We are coming back after we finish eating. Because it's not quite nice to be so long and just watch us how it is.
Yeah, it's boring for the viewer. Yeah. Yes, understood.
We are back asking about a success story where the therapists solve conflicts and getting closer emotional.
So I have a story of a couple about to finish, not quite finished, but they were barely speaking to each other when we started, and there would often be arguments about housework, about one person doing too much, the other person not doing too little. Initially, this couple came because there was no intimacy, but the conflict was often around really just not being able to agree on very much. There was a constant tension, so when you're talking about conflict, that's what I think about. I think about the way in which a couple can have a lot of tension, just day-to-day kind of stuff.
I found myself like that happened to me.
It happens to it's almost inevitable. But it's when it's continuous, because you can have an argument. That's one kind of conflict, but I'm talking about conflict that is daily. It's always there. You're not sleeping together. You're barely talking to each other. One comes in from work and immediately there's some kind of in English we say like a spat, like a sharp exchange of words. So conflict in that sense, it's very difficult. The thing about and I think one of the things that perhaps people don't really understand about therapy is that when you come to a therapist, they provide a neutral, safe space. I can't say that often enough because I don't think people really get it, what that does. So when I work with this couple, I'm listening to her. I'm asking him to wait until I finished, then listening to him. Now, when they're speaking to me, the other person that's not speaking has to listen. And they have to hear what is being said, right? Because they're invested. They've come into this space. They're invested. So even though when they're at home, they might not speak to each other, when they're in the session with me, they have to hear. They have to see what the other, not only hear, but also hear and feel what the other person is feeling, right? And I think that's especially when there's emotional conflict, one of the things that is often present is that a person can feel, either partner, male or female or whatever, two women, two men, it doesn't matter, can feel that the reason why anger occurs is because people are not heard.
Yeah.
They're not received, they're not seen. And so what I provide is a space in which they can actually be seen, right? So let's say it's a woman who's stressed, she has two little children, he's out all day, classical kind of traditional relationship. And he comes home and he complains that the place is untidy, right? Now she's been caring for two little children, a baby and a toddler, all day, right? So he doesn't see all the work that involves. So when he complains about the place being untidy, it's kind of like, naturally that's going to make her angry, right? Because it's like he completely doesn't see all the work and love and effort that she's put in. All he cares about is, with this stuff on the floor or on the table or whatever. But so if you pause that couple in the middle of that argument and you say, well, hold on, what's going on here? Let's listen to her, let's listen to him. It's that pause that I think really helps people to resolve conflict, because you're quite interested in how people resolve conflict. And there's different ways, but it just pausing long enough actually to be able to just express yourself is what does it.
The thing is, exactly today I published a short video, how to build up a good relationship. I think I told you last time with a 14 days challenge to build the relationships.
Okay.
And on the video, what I published today was about listening.
Yeah.
Even today, I talked with my wife before she went to work. She was trying to help me to understand what's wrong with me, in the sense, sometimes I don't believe in myself, the way how I'm talking. This is my concern, but it's coming from something from the childhood.
Okay, sure.
I understand that, but at the moment, I didn't want to listen to that. And I was instantly take my phone and just ignore. Yes. I know I'm supposed to not do that, and sometimes when she's telling me stuff, I'm just putting away the phone. But this time, she took the phone and flipped it to pay attention to her. She knows it's not exactly what I want to hear in that moment, but she knows I need to hear it.
Okay.
For me, it was like, I can't do that.
But yeah.
When she flipped the phone, I realized, I need to listen. It's not because I was scared.
Sure.
But I realized I'm doing that. I was trying to avoid the situation, basically. And I was phasing out.
Yes.
And when she flipped the phone, I said, I do it again.
It's almost automatic.
I remember my father, he was coming at me and repeat the same thing over and over. I get used to mute him.
Right.
Mute him out and doing my stuff.
Right.
And I'm trying to get rid of that. Since I started the podcast, it helped me because basically I need to listen my guests.
Sure, of course.
And not follow a script.
Sure.
Before I was looking to the next question. I didn't listen what my guest said.
Yes.
Now everything changed. Even you realize, but something similar happened to me. Yeah, it's a learning process.
But it is absolutely a learning process, and I think that's one of the things that people learn through therapy, is that it's a learning process. That actually building a good relationship is a learning process. So, for example, if I use this couple again, they learned to actually hear each other, not just listen, but actually hear each other. And the key to that is that it's difficult. So going back to your example, it's difficult to listen if you're full of something unexpressed, if that makes sense. So if person A is full of resentments about something that person B has done, it's difficult for person A to hear what person B wants to say. So, and it's a bit chicken and egg situation, but once person A has been able to express their feelings of their resentments and so on, then they're much more predisposed to hear what person B has to say.
Yeah.
What their person, and that's something that's a little key, if you like, to any communication. When things go wrong, it's important. So, for instance, if it's between a man and a woman, I think one of the things that if one person, let's say the woman, is full of all this stuff, sometimes she needs to get rid of that before she's ready to hear what her partner has to say. And that was the case with this couple. Once we worked through some of her resentment, some of her difficulties, then she had enough space in her head to listen to his. Yeah. And one of the things that he would often say is that, you're not listening to what I'm saying. You don't hear. It's like I'm saying it, but you're not, give me a chance to actually say. And slowly but surely, she was able to give him that time and that space to actually listen to him, because she had felt that she had been heard and had gotten enough of her resentments out. So when you talk about conflict and getting emotionally close, that couple used to sit like at different sides of the room. Now, when I see them, they're sitting right next close to each other, right? Because they've become emotionally very close, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been many months. It's not something that happens, like that. It's been many months. It is a process. It's a learning process.
Yeah, true. What is the worst part of relationship that often brings most conflicts?
It's a really interesting one because we can go for the easy hits, sex and money, right? That's the easy part. But actually,
I think it's the easy part. Yeah.
But there's something much more profound than that. Not sure how to put into words really, which is about, and I think this is where therapy becomes absolutely necessary, which is about when people bring childhood conditioning, which has become unconscious, into their present day circumstance. So, for example, let me think of another couple now where the father was an alcoholic. And he would, in fact, I can think of more than one couple where this is the woman's father is an alcoholic and effectively terrorizes, when he's drunk, terrorizes the family, the children, the wife. Sometimes there's violence, sometimes there's very severe violence. Now, the worst part is that when that woman grows up and goes into a relationship, often what can happen is that she brings that expectation that men are going to be like that. It's unconscious. She doesn't think it consciously, but in her, that what she's learned from her childhood is that men are drunk or violent or abusive or both or all of it. And she can then, because she has that expectation, she can then project it onto the man. It happens with men too. It's not specific to women. I'm just using that example because there's quite a few examples in my mind of women who've come into a relationship with a good man, right? But still expecting that somehow he's going to be
the father.
Like the father. And I would say that is probably the worst thing, because in her anxiety and fear, she doesn't see the man who is in front of her. She sees her father. Again, this is unconscious. That's why it's difficult.
Yeah, I can relate with that. It's just because she was in charge to tidy up the house in her family and I think I remember even one time everything was sparkling, only the light switch was a bit dirty. I don't know why.
Yeah.
And he snapped on that. But the thing is, I saw she's doing the same with me.
Yes, exactly.
But I'm not doing that. Sometimes she was apologizing because she didn't cook. What you are talking about? I know you didn't have time. It's easy for me. You just put some meat and you're done.
Yeah. That happens, Mariam, because we internalize our parents' behavior. Okay, and it becomes part. In a sense, we identify. It becomes part of how we are. And so, for myself, for instance. I grew up in a very traditional household, and my mother was very particular about how you make beds. Okay, and you had to be made in a very precise way. And with my children, I was the same. And my daughter, who's about to turn 50, by the way, will still tell you how many times I would, if she didn't make the bed correctly. Yeah, I would unmake it and she would start again until she made it correctly. Because I internalized what my mother was like and became like her in many ways. And I mean, hopefully you grow out of it. I certainly wouldn't do that now. But when I was younger and my children were little, I would behave very much like that. Or my mother was Italian, and what Italian mothers love to do is feed you, right?
Yeah.
There's a word in Italian which is eat, which is mangia. So she would say mangia, mangia, eat. And I was like that with my children, You have to finish everything and you have to eat everything, otherwise she's offended that that your food isn't good or something.
Oh yeah.
So and we bring these things to our relationships, not just with our children, but with our partners, with our friends, and so on. So yeah, we've gone off topic a little bit there.
Yeah, I know, but
still,
it was still interesting because I remember if you didn't eat, so I don't like my food.
Exactly.
I cook all day,
exactly.
and you're
Yes.
not eating.
Yes, what's wrong with my food?
Yeah, and my father was bringing. There are people who don't have food, and you are picking.
Yeah, I got that one too. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so those are some of the worst things because we bring them unconsciously, and the job of therapy is to make those things, make a person more aware of what they're carrying in their unconscious so that they have more control over it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it all comes automatically.
I want to ask you why men, they find difficulty to open up.
Right. So
because women,
yes.
with women it's very easy. They are going to tell you,
absolutely.
Or they are holding up and you can see something is wrong.
Right, yes. This question alone could be a whole thesis, a whole doctorate. But anyway, I will try and give you my opinion as the best I can do, okay? I think it's partly biological and partly psychosocial, okay? Because I think partly the children, boys learn it from their parents and from society around them. But also I think it's biological because I think testosterone, it's more of an action hormone, if you see what I mean, rather than oxytocin, which women tend to have more of. So, therefore, women are much more, we're biologically designed to be have children and nurture those children in a way that perhaps men are not quite to the same extent. So that I think is the biology of it, and that's way over too simplified, but we haven't got time to go into the whole. So socially, there has been studies that demonstrate, even today, that people will treat baby girls differently to baby boys. So, for example, if you have a boy toddler, he is more likely to be told, "You're all right, get up, there's nothing wrong with you." If it's a girl toddler that falls down, she'll be, oh, let me see, are you all right? Did you hurt yourself? So baby girls or little girl children and little boy children are treated very differently. And that already begins to teach a male child that not to cry, not so much not to cry these days, but still they're still taught to be more independent, to problem solve by themselves, to all of those things which we think of as masculinity, if you like. Again, not so much now, but still there is a very real divide. You're a human being first, right? At
True.
least in my opinion.
Yeah.
We're human being first and gender second. Yet the way we raise children, it's very much gender-based. And I think that's why what that produces is men who never really learn how to be in touch with their feelings, how to express themselves. And a lot of the work that I do in the therapeutic room is to enable men to express themselves. Because the majority of men still think that they have to be solve their own problems, take care of their own feelings, manage not by themselves, but manage themselves in a way that women perhaps don't. Women are much more likely to be able to share emotions, share feelings, and so on. it's still not really okay for men to do that. It's better than it was 10, certainly better than it was 30, 40, 50 years ago, but it's still not quite there.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the problem originates from. I could say a lot more.
But there are mothers who are raising the son like
to be soft.
They're acting with the boy like is their partner.
Yes, that's a different story. I don't think that.
And
yes.
Usually when they grew up, they are egoistic, if I say right.
Yeah. They can be quite narcissistic or egoistic. Yeah, sure. That's a different thing. That's called enmeshment.
All right. I didn't know the term.
Yeah, that's called enmeshment because the child is put in the position of having to emotionally care for the mother, and his feelings are then ignored or his needs are minimized. So whatever he feels emotionally is not important. You know, all that's important is what the mother feels. Because she's treating him like her partner, right?
I mean,
to serve her needs.
Not quite.
No?
It's not quite. I want to say it's like we have a saying in Romania: they didn't cut the umbilical cord.
Yeah.
And
she's not letting go.
She's still feeding him.
Yes.
Even he's 10.
Yes, I have an example of a man. His mother, he was nearly 50, and his mother was still peeling fruit for him. That is still a form of enmeshment. It's not quite. You're right. It's not quite like she's treating him like a partner, but it's still a kind of an inappropriate bond. It's not. It hasn't never allowed him to be fully and freely himself. And yes, he's going to have lots of problems expressing himself, of course.
Because I know a few of them, they don't have actual partner.
That's right.
Or if they have really problem in their marriage.
It's still a form of enmeshment because the mother, you see, when you're growing a child, when a child is growing, you're supposed to allow them to learn for themselves. You're supposed to allow them to develop their own personalities, their own feelings. That you're supposed to see them develop into the person that they are. If you keep them too close, there isn't enough room for them to develop their own identity.
Yeah.
Right? And the key thing about that is that the mother is doing that for her own needs. She's not doing it for him.
True.
Do you see? And that's why he never really learns even how to express himself, because all he knows is how to be what his mother wants him to be. Make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very sad actually in many ways, because then when that mother dies, then he's even more lost, isn't he? Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, I know.
Because he doesn't know how to relate to other people or women, let's say in this case, in a more normal or natural way. I mean, that kind of situation will take some years of therapy to fix.
I remember now a story. I know someone who went in Italy for work, basically to bring some money to the family.
Sure.
And he didn't stay for a week in Italy to work because...
Didn't last a week.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't last. He returned back in Romania because his mother was crying.
Wow.
But he sacrificed a bit of money to go in Italy to work, and he didn't care what that would do for his family.
Right. Yeah, because his mother needed him.
Yeah.
Very sad.
Yeah, very sad. Yeah. What tools or strategy they can gain from coming to therapy, a couple who want to solve the conflicts?
If it's conflict in general, then we would look at communication issues. like we've talked before about listening. And talking and so on, and turn taking and so on. If it's conflict over a specific thing, then we would focus on that kind of thing. Now, in terms of tools, it's not always possible to just have a tool. I'm thinking of a couple that I'm working with at the moment where there is a very specific issue, and each thing that I've suggested, they're not doing it, and so they're not really changing or learning. One of the tools that I often suggest, because they're only suggestions, right, is learning to just, I think we may even have spoken about this last time, but it's important, especially in conflict. One of the tools is to have that 1 minute share where you just listen and say nothing. But another one, I think, is to write down the things that you're angry about. So we do anger work when there's lots of conflict, whether it's specific or general. One of the things that I would do is ask each partner to write out what they're angry about without sharing it.
Yeah.
In order to vent it. Do you remember what I said earlier about if you're too full up of something, you can't listen? So in order to kind of download what you're angry about, I offer to people to write it out, right? In whatever, your native language preferably, because it flows more easily.
Yeah.
I'm angry with you because, and keep finishing that sentence. I'm angry with you because you never noticed that, I've done whatever. I'm angry with you because you said this. I'm angry with you, and so on. And really download all the things that you are feeling so that you're a little bit more empty and have a bit more space for being able to actually look at the situation differently. Now, another tool, a simpler one perhaps, and one that's at times difficult to learn, and I think I've often had to speak to men more often than women, but I think both need to learn it. And that is to step back. I don't know if we talked about this last time.
I think I said something about this type.
You step back. So in the middle of an argument, and you have to step back and you have to say, what's going on here? Okay.
And that's important.
And that's really important. Or you separate from each other. You don't continue the talking, the shouting, the whatever. You separate from each other. That's another one. Okay. These are really key things to do when there's lots of conflict. You step away. And I don't mean literally, but you step away from...
You stay there, but step outside to see what is going on. It's exactly what happened with the phone, with me.
Exactly.
When she tossed my phone.
Yeah.
I said, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't realize what I'm doing. I got it.
The reason for that is because a simple maxim that you might like to adopt is the solution is not where the problem is.
True.
Right?
Yeah.
The solution is never where the problem is. So you've got to step away from the problem if you're going to find the solution. Okay? That's if you can remember just that, it'll trigger you to just mentally step back and say, whoa. Another reason, by a more biological reason, if you like, is because when we're in the middle of anger, upset, resentment, when we're flooded with emotions, what that does is it actually takes your prefrontal cortex, which is the reasoning, the executive part of the mind, it takes it a bit offline, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Right? Because the emotions take over and you're not really thinking clearly. You think you are, but you're not.
I think I saw in some Romanian podcast saying about the elephant is taking the control. Not the rider, horse rider.
Exactly, yes, exactly.
And
yes.
I think the horse rider is that who is reasoning, and basically, and the elephant is just...
Stampeding, yeah.
Yeah, stomping.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. There's a guy that has written a book, Wired for Love, and he calls it the ambassadors and the primitives. So your emotions, your negative emotions are the primitives. And the ambassadors are those parts of you that are capable of reasoning and negotiating, which is another key tool, is learning to negotiate. I think that nowadays people in couples have lost or don't have very good capacity to negotiate.
That's true.
Because you need to negotiate for your needs. You need to negotiate for your partner's needs. You need to negotiate for everything.
Yeah, we need to. Same with the kids.
Exactly. And if a person has too much of a sense of entitlement, they're not negotiating. And that's another key tool would be to negotiate. Because in negotiations you have to know what you can live with and what you can't, and what you can't live with. Okay, so you might be able to live with somebody shouting when they get angry, but you wouldn't be able to live with somebody who is violent when they get angry. Do you see what I mean? So, but you have to know that within yourself, and you need to be able to, kind of negotiate around that, because there are some things which are non-negotiable, like violence, right? That's non-negotiable, but everything else can be, right?
Yeah.
So that's quite a lot of things just there, actually.
I have this question. How does therapy helps couples build and maintain emotional intimacy?
Emotional intimacy or just...
Emotional intimacy.
Or intimacy in general?
Yeah, emotional.
Okay. Make time for each other. One of the things of our modern society is that nobody has time for each other. And one of the things that therapy does is it forces you to make that time, because you have to be there at that time that you've agreed, for a length of time that you've agreed. So it forces you to make time for each other and for this relationship. That's one of the things that people don't do enough of. We're all guilty of it, okay? Which is why Valentine's Day is an important day, because it's a time when people are forced to make a special effort to demonstrate their love for their partner, right? Because we don't generally tend to do that. We tend to be casual about it. And sometimes you need to look, the question maybe that really should be asked is, what's the greatest gift of love? As far as I'm concerned, it's time. If you give me your time, undivided attention, that for me is the greatest gift. It doesn't matter where we are then, it doesn't matter what we're doing, what we're wearing, what we look like. That focus of attention is always going to make you feel special.
The best gift is time.
Is time. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's good.
So if you want to build emotional intimacy, make sure that you make time for your partner to just be with them. Nothing else, no phones, no nothing.
Like have a coffee.
Yeah, just to have, absolutely.
Basically how time. I had today, coffee and a talk.
Yeah, exactly.
What is the best way for a couple to manage the emotional triggers from the past traumas?
Okay, so let me just first say a couple of things briefly about traumas. There's all kinds of traumas in the world, all kinds of traumas in our lives. And it can be something very minor from, being shouted at or being bullied, all the way through to major traumas like war and assaults and so on. I think what you're talking about here is kind of maybe things that's happened to somebody in the past, whether they had an abusive relationship or something like that. And these things will resurface. So we can use the example of somebody being shouted at. If somebody has had a bad experience with people shouting at them, if they then have a partner but when they get angry, they shout, it can it can reawaken those bad experiences. Okay, so these are what we call small T traumas. Okay, and they basically, the couple has to come together in their thinking about how they manage that. Okay, because the person who is being triggered needs to understand that that is what's happening to them, that this is a trigger. This isn't about now. This is about a trigger, something that happened in the past. It's not the same. This is not the same thing. It's not happening to me. And the person who, in this case, doing the shouting, needs to realize that they're triggering their partner and needs to learn to modulate their voice even when they're angry. Okay, because you can be angry without shouting. You can talk in an angry way without raising your voice, right? So this is what I mean by modulating your voice. It's about kind of having an awareness that actually when you do this thing, whatever it is, shouting in this case, you're going to trigger, your partner. And that way you have to work together. But until both people realize and understand, are aware of that's what's happening, it's probably going to cause chaos. But this is again where sometimes therapy can really come in and point out, wait, why are you reacting? You know, let's say I had this couple in front of me, he kind of is triggered when she's shouting, then I would say to him, okay, what memories do you have about being shouted at? Let's think about that for a minute. What happens to you inside your mind? And so on. And then I would talk to her and say, why do you find yourself shouting? Is there some other way that you can learn to express your anger? And so both they work together then to improve the situation. And eventually that, the trauma can resolve itself as well. And eventually he becomes, a little bit more, less sensitive, let's say, to raised voices. Yeah?
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Should couple have access to each other's phones or social media accounts?
That's quite a tricky question, isn't it? Because, I could say to you, well, I don't see any reason why you wouldn't have access, right? But there's also a question of simple privacy, right? So, and for a lot of people, that's really invasive, right? Why would you need to go into my, social media account? You can see, I'm posting there, you can see what I'm posting, but you don't need to actually go into it, right? Because there's a difference, isn't there? So there's a difference between being able to see what your partner's posting and actually having access to the account. It's a different issue. But for some partners, they have each other's passwords. They easily exchange these things. They easily kind of go in and out of each other's things but it's something that they've agreed to and that that works for them.
Like in my case. I mean, basically, we have that because we need something what it's like a picture from Messenger,
exactly.
say.
I have the same with my partner. We know each other's passwords and so on. But I would never have a reason to go into anything of my partner's without either I've asked him. And it's just easy if I already know the password and I will say to him, I just need to get something from your phone. But it's something that I think each person, and I come back to this idea of negotiation, you need to negotiate. It's important, I think, that you are both comfortable with whatever level of access you give each other, right? For instance, I quite frequently share my location with my partner, but some people feel that would be really invasive. Whereas, again, it's a very personal, I think.
It can be for a security reason.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But some people feel invaded. Some people feel it's inappropriate, But it's the same with money, isn't it? It's another thing. Some people share bank accounts, they know exactly who is earning what and so on, and they pool all their money together. And some people keep everything very separate. I think it's a personal choice. I think you have to think about why you would share a bit with your partner, how safe you feel with your partner. And whether and how committed. Because if you're just boyfriend and girlfriend living apart, I would think maybe not. But if you're sharing a life, then you're sharing everything, really, aren't you?
That's true. You share everything, basically: emotion, relationship, house, bed,
exactly,
bank
food,
account.
bank accounts, everything. So again, I think it's the reason why you do something rather than. And I'm certainly not one to say you should do this or you should do that, because I think that today, especially in today's world, in 2025, we are creating our own relationships. We're no longer following tradition in the way that our parents did and their parents did. We are creating our own versions of what a good relationship looks like. And I think this is one of those questions. Sex is the same, emotional closeness is the same. It's what's right for you and your partner. And you alone can know that together. That's my answer.
Can you answer briefly for how couples can rebuild trust after infidelity or betrayal?
How many words have I got here?
That's why I say briefly.
Briefly. Oh my God. Look.
Because I think it's not easy.
It's not easy. But the key thing with building trust, as far as I'm concerned, is transparency. Transparency. Now, that doesn't mean that the person who is trying to rebuild their trust should want to know every minute detail and control everything. No. But I do think that both need to be transparent about what they're feeling, about what they're doing, about what's going on for them inside. Not so much outside, but inside. And I think that's what builds trust. Because if you know what's going on inside your partner's head, you kind of know what they're feeling, you know where you stand. And I think it's that knowing that makes you feel safe to trust again. That's as simple as I can make it. There's a lot more to it than that. But ultimately, if each person can be really transparent about their feelings, the problem with that is that it can make you feel vulnerable, it can make you feel unsafe, and so on. So there's a lot of work to do there. A lot of work, especially after infidelity.
I think it's a very hard question.
It is a very hard question. And I'll tell you one thing about infidelity. I have come to believe through my work and with people who've been unfaithful, I've come to believe that infidelity most often, not always, but most often is born out of anger. And the reason why I say that is because you have to be pretty angry to not care how much what you're doing is actually going to hurt your partner.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, that's true.
Otherwise, you're delusional, because people say, "Oh, well, what you don't see, you don't hurt you." Well, actually, that's not true. That's absolutely not true.
Maybe it doesn't hurt in that moment, but later.
Absolutely.
Because every secret is going to be revealed.
Exactly. The
sooner.
truth will out, as the saying goes.
I read a statistic lately about gay relationships.
Gay relationships, yeah.
Apparently, here in UK, almost 8,000 of gay marriage.
Yeah.
Which almost 500 it was women and the rest it was men. My question is, how do gay relationships works?
How do they work? Okay.
Because I think they have different challenges, like a man and woman.
Yeah.
In a part, because man can think like a man.
Yeah.
If they are both
a
pair, or like woman and woman, maybe they don't have that with tidying up the house.
How do they work? They work, the really simple answer is they work just like any other relationship. Gay relationship work just the same as because we're talking about people. In the end of the day, we're talking about human beings, right? And in a gay relationship, you're going to have one person that is very tidy and one person that's not very tidy, irrespective of their gender, okay? Because this is more about what you learned as a child. It's more about, what all kinds of things that are not necessarily to do with gender, to be fair, okay? Now, how do gay relationships work? the interesting thing about gay relationship that I think works better than heterosexual relationships is that very often gay relationships, polyamorous relationships, open relationships work well. When they do work, they work well because everybody knows what the rules are. Because in a gay relationship or a lesbian relationship or an open relationship, you have to talk about is that you have to lay out the rules because you're not necessarily following a traditional blueprint. And when you're not following a traditional blueprint, then you have to work it out for yourself. So as far as I'm concerned, I think heterosexual couples could learn a lot from gay couples.
Yeah.
Right? By being open and honest about what they want, about what they feel, about what the relationship should look like. Okay? So how do they work? I think firstly they work like that. I think that they're very much more straightforward in that sense because people are more likely to discuss how they want the relationship to work. I think that they work in all kinds of different ways because, again, they don't necessarily follow a traditional relationship path or heterosexual path. And so it can be very... I think I've met as many couples, gay or lesbian couples that I've met, each one had their very own, very particular style of relating, if you like. For example, some would be monogamous, some not. Some would only have casual lovers. Some would have multiple relationships. All agreed, all known about, all accepted. Other than that, they work very much. Again, we're just talking about human beings, right?
Yeah.
You have to eat, you have to sleep, you have to work to get money. You want to raise children. One of the biggest challenges, perhaps, for gay people is that, or LGBTQ people, is that of making a family. I think that's perhaps one of the most difficult and sometimes emotionally painful things is how, getting a child, making a family, having children. Because obviously, if you're same sex, it's much more difficult or challenging to actually have a child. But lots of people manage it.
Yeah.
And raise happy children. Other than that, I think they work just the same as any two people living together and negotiating for their needs and wants. And
the thing is, in this statistic, in percent, the divorce rate, it was lower than straight.
Yes.
For relationship.
I'm sure, and I don't know I haven't read this research, but I would guess it's for some of the reasons that I've already stated.
Question: what challenges they face?
The challenges they face, the two main ones are creating a family. Obviously, that's a big one, and the other one is creating a relationship that's right for them. In the same way as I was saying, everything needs to be talked about and set out, and what are the rules of our relationship? I think those are the kind of challenges because they haven't got a pre-established blueprint as heterosexual people might do.
Can you share a story where couples were able to navigate a major life change, like moving, having children? What made it work for them if they come for therapy?
It's interesting because people don't generally come for therapy for those reasons. I think what you're saying is that if they're in therapy and there's a major life change, is that what you mean?
Yeah, major, like going different country.
One couple that I worked with who were originally living in a very small place. And they decided they were going to buy a house together. So they moved into his parents' home, and they were there quite a few months. Eventually, they managed to buy a house and move into their own home. It was very interesting. The couple I'm thinking about, there were several stages. However, in terms of the life change itself, so they moved twice during the period of therapy. They moved twice. First, when they moved into his parents' home, and then when they bought their own home and moved into their new home. Okay, And I think that what helped them is being able to think about the loss of independence, firstly, when they moved into his parents' home. So thinking about what they've lost by not having the freedom of their own space, and really thinking about that and how they would manage this new situation. So thinking about all of that and kind of processing it and getting their heads around what it means. And then the other way around, when they get into their own home and they process, they have to kind of really get used to a new lifestyle, right? So the lifestyle changed twice. And what's important when you're going through a life change like that, or whether it's a new baby or as you say, perhaps moving country, is really to learn to think about and really give time to what it means to, what are the changes? Really understanding what the changes are, what you're losing, what you're gaining, how you're different in it, because this couple was very different whilst they were at home with his parents in the parents' home than when they had their own house. It was like a different couple. It was literally like a different couple. The stress of being in his parents' home, because you're not free to just be yourself. You're not free to, your parents are going to notice everything you're doing. If you're having an argument, if you're having noisy sex, if you're wanting to go out and eat at 2:00 in the morning or something, whatever, right?
Yeah.
So you're constrained, right? And it changes the dynamic between you and your partner. But then when they moved into their home, they were much more relaxed, much more open. Sex became much more easy for them. Again, all because in the therapy, we were able to just think about what it means, how you manage it, what you're gaining, what you're losing, what you're giving up, etc. So just giving time and thought to those things is really important. And I think that's one of the key things that therapy helps you do, is really cause you to just stop and think, okay, what's going on here? What am I feeling? How do I need to manage this? That kind of thing. Does that answer your question? Yeah?
Yeah. We are going to see you in the next episode.
Yes,
and
thank you. I will look forward to it.
I will see then what food we are going to eat.
Okay, perfect.
If you have any questions, just pop them in the comment section and I can ask.
Absolutely.